Okay, we've got a bit of a false start here, or at least a late start. Ole, can you hear me? Everything okay on your end?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. So
Okay, excellent.
we're gonna be joined in just a little while by Gene Chip Tatum. How are you, Ole?
I'm good. I'm good. I just want to say that I hope the listeners by now understand that when we have guests like Chip Tatum or when we discuss really sensitive things, we are heavily under attack technically, and this is why of this delay. So my excuses, but we are struggling here just to get the normal things working.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you and I have been in touch with Chip, and then this morning I got a message from Skype that I've never seen before. It was a really unusual message saying, what did it say? It was telling me that contact is blocked.
And welcome to this strange world, you know. So, Jason, I was thinking maybe I can introduce Chip, and then let's hope that he will join us because Chip and I go a few years back. I think I got in touch with him 2012 the first time, and Chip is actually someone I have in my book, Coup d'etat in slow motion. It's the very final chapter. But when I added that to my book, I thought he was dead because everything pointed toward him being dead and being washed ashore with his face, torn off by the rocks and stuff. So there was this rumor saying that he was dead, and then I managed to get hold of him. It was really incredible. Anyway, Chip Tatum is a Florida beach boy to start with, and he was recruited as I think he was 19. He was recruited and sent to, if I remember right, he was in Laos. At that time, it was when there was a lot of advisors, there are military advisors, but without knowing it, he was being pulled into a false flag operation where they attacked an airport, trying to make it look like it was the enemy that had attacked it. And the whole part of the plan was that Chip and the rest of the people that had carried it out should be killed on location.
Whoa.
And but his captain discovered what was going on and managed to shoot off the other ones in his own patrol that was there to terminate them. And after that, the Chip and his friends, I think they spent like a week or 10 days in the jungle trying to get out. And in the end, I believe it was only him and one more that survived. And they had gone through absolute hell, also torture, all kinds of things. And he was wounded. And so when he woke up at the hospital, there was a man sitting next to his bed. And that man was William Colby, the future director of the CIA, who said to him, listen, son, at this point, you know too much. So you have the option. Either we say bye-bye now and it's over and done with, or we sign you up and keep a very close eye on you within the CIA. What do you choose? So he was sort of like forced into the CIA and started a career there under the wings of William Colby. William Colby was very, very fond of him and kept him under his wings during his whole career. But Chip rose very much in this area. And I mean, just imagine working with people that you know wanted to kill you a week before. And now you're so not the nicest circumstances. Anyway, so he rose and he became a very, very skilled pilot. And he has flown all the presidents from Richard Nixon and onwards to George Bush Sr. On private jets and down in South America, wherever they flew, Chip was one of the people flying them. And this guy can fly anything from, a Cessna to a big C-130, whatever. And he's famous. Chip is really famous as well for being able to fly so that radar cannot detect him. And people have tried to pay him a lot of money to show his trick, how he's doing it, but he's never shared it as far as I know.
Wow.
But anyway, his career continued, and he was very deeply involved in the so-called Iran-Contras. That's him as a young guy. In the Iran-Contras scandal, where he was one of the pilots together with Barry Seal now portrayed by Tom Cruise in this movie American Dream, or whatever the name is.
American Made.
American Made, that's it.
Yeah.
Where he was flying weapons down to South America. They were stolen from the National Guard in the US and then transported to Mena, Arkansas, where Cody was one of the people delivering weapons to this whole operation. And then Chip was one of the pilots together with Barry Seal flying up and down to Nicaragua, Costa Rica, no, not Costa Rica, El Salvador, and Honduras. Anyway, while he was doing this, he was becoming more and more aware of that Bush Sr. had stepped closer and closer to the point of power. And Colby came to him one day and said, you know, there's this real bad mother who has now entered into the CIA at a top level, and it's going down. Colby knew that his time was, that his day was counted for, that he was going down. And he said, it's too late for me, but you need to start collecting a lot of what he called insurance, which was evidence.
But wait a minute, Ole. The real bad mother coming into the CIA who he was talking about was George Herbert Walker Bush, right?
That is it. And it was Colby who warned him about Bush Sr. But Chip had been working with lots of the people around Operation 40, like Felix Rodriguez and other operatives. Oliver North was his closest boss. That was under the George Bush as well, because Bush took over that whole thing and created what was called the Enterprise, which was this whole drug industry of how to transport drugs illegally into the U.S. But at the same time, also Chip became the commander, the secret commander of Bush Sr.'s private hit team called Pegasus. And so Chip was part of leading at least, I think, 14 assassinations in the Western world, in South America and different places around the world. So Chip is very much as deep in the dark web as you can come. But then it came to a point, just like with Cody, where it was just, he was pushed too far. And that was when George Bush Sr. was threatened or challenged by an Texas oil millionaire by the name of Ross Perot. And Ross Perot approached George Bush Sr. as vice president and said, listen, it's come to my attention that there's still prisoners of wars left to rot in Vietnam. We need to get our boys back home. And Bush did not want anyone to touch into that for whatever reason. So he more or less kicked Ross Perot out of there and said, just go away and forget about the whole thing. But Ross got very, very upset with that and decided to run for president because of this. He said, I'm going to do it, then I'm going to use my own money to do it. And so at that point, George Bush got very upset also, I think, because he thought that that could be part of exposing the whole reason for the Vietnam War, which to a large extent was the opium and drug imports through the whole channels that was opened up through the Vietnam War, where he was deeply involved. And Felix Rodriguez, Ted Shackley, these kind of boys that was part of Operation 40 as well, deeply involved on this drug import. And so he ordered Chip Tatum to stop Ross Perot, indirectly terminate him, or do whatever to stop him. And at that point, Chip just stood up and said, listen, I refuse to do this. I just refuse to do it. Just like Cody did, to kill an American on American soil, that was just too much. So, and Bush got extremely upset with him and wanted to take him out there and then, in the White House. And so Chip
wanted
said,
to take out Chip in the White House?
Yeah, more or less kill him, get him killed.
Wow.
And so Chip said, before you consider chopping my head off, please watch this. And so he handed over the insurance that he had collected over the years. Among that was film footage of Bill Clinton and George Bush Sr. personally receiving drugs in Mena, Arkansas, personally being part of unloading these tons of cocaine and overseeing the operation. Bill Clinton together with his partner Dan Lasseter. And so but also a lot of other stuff that we don't know about, that was so sensitive.
Okay. So Ole, Chip, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Chip is with us. He's ready to join. Let me bring him in, and we can continue the conversation once he's on with us. Sorry to interrupt you. Please carry on with what you were saying. Oh, here he is. He's with us. Chip, can you hear us?
Hi.
How are you?
Chip.
Hello. I'm good. Sorry.
Okay.
Down here in Ecuador with quarantine, the electric company and the internet companies don't work. So if one works, the other doesn't.
But
We're just delighted to have you
on
with us. Thank you for joining
Good
us.
to see you again. Good to see you again, Ole.
Good to see you, Chip. I just gave a bit of an introduction about your colorful background here. And do you know when Jason tried to contact you before, it said that you were blocked by Skype, but somehow that was we managed to get around that one.
Yeah, well, Skype does that.
Well, it's also interesting to note, Chip, you've got an article on chiptatum.com where you are directly calling out Microsoft, revealing that contractors are listening to Skype calls ostensibly to enable their automatic translation function. So I didn't even know that until I was checking out chiptatum.com.
Yeah, you know, they've pretty well sanctioned me in all realms. Communication.
Something weird. A little feedback there.
So how are you doing, Chip? Long time.
Yeah, doing well. Living in Ecuador, living both in Ecuador and in Colombia. Right now we're quarantined. We can't travel out of the city we're in until they lift the quarantine, the shelter-in-place orders. We can leave here. I can leave depending on the last number of my ID card, my passport. One day, and only one person in the car. Can't have more than one person in the car.
Yeah. They've
got hit pretty tough with this pandemic down here. You know, it's
right.
Yeah.
That's a good word, plandemic. I like that one.
Now, Chip, you've got a new book coming, or is it out? This book, Mule, about Robert Mueller.
The Mule is out. The newest book that's out is called the VIR, which is a virus-induced revolution, which we're in right now. It refers to the elites and the globalists move using this virus to move us into more of an Orwellian, more of a fourth industrial revolution, replacing manpower with robots, with technology.
Mm-hmm. And certainly Bill Gates is a major player in that. Microsoft owns Skype, so that's an interesting angle. We've been doing a lot of reporting on this push towards a vaccine, which has, all of its own questions. People have spoken a lot about some of the dangers of vaccines, but this is a new thing, not just the adjuncts or adjuvants or whatever these ingredients in vaccines are that people are concerned about. It's this issue of Bill Gates wanting to digitally track everybody to determine if they have or have not been vaccinated. Chip, do you agree that this whole pandemic is essentially designed to make people deathly afraid of it so that they'll line up eagerly to be vaccinated?
It's designed to create chaos and fear in the world. That's what it is designed to do. It's designed to bring world economies to its knees, which it has done. It's designed to take all governments of the world and make them dependent on world financial institutions, which it has done. The president here just, I think Saturday morning, announced over the internet, that's how they communicate here, announced over the internet that he went to the World Bank and IMF for funds, and they said they just have no money.
Whoa.
So where will the money come from? It's going to come from the Gateses. It's going to come from, actually, it's going to come from those who are actually ruling and handling all the money, and we know who those are. And you know, people think it's the people who are going into these Bilderberger shows. Those are only the representatives going in there of the controlling entities. You know, we flew several people, and they fight among themselves. Several of these entities, and the entities change. It's the office that they hold. It's the office that they hold that controls this. We're talking about a group that most of the world have a relation with, and one needs to look at the religious leaders and their very quiet, functioning meetings that they hold just before the G8, G20, whatever you want to call it, meetings.
Wow.
One should look at those.
We're going to do that, Chip, and thank you so much for joining us. So much of what we discuss on Ole's show is so sensitive, it just allows YouTube to, totally blitz the videos, shut our channels down, and prevent this information from coming out. So one of the steps that Ole and I have taken to mitigate this type of attack is that we've got a sponsor-exclusive show on patreon.com/lightonconspiracies, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And in just under 10 minutes, we're going to begin our full interview with Chip over there. And we're going to be discussing some truly explosive things, including exactly the people that you're referring to, Chip. So we want to give people just a few minutes. There's a couple technical things that I'm going to adjust to improve our communication with you, Chip. And we'll be back in just about 5 minutes on Patreon and Subscribestar. People who want to learn more about Chip, who perhaps haven't heard of him before today, if you've been living under a rock, you can go to chiptatum.com and read all about the Pegasus file. He's got videos there, links to his books. He's got the Mule. He's got his new book about exposing this pandemic that we all seem to agree is a planned event, and people can go to chiptatum.com and learn more about that. We'll be back in just a few minutes with the conclusion to this interview. Chip, thanks so much for joining us. Stand by for just a moment while people transition over to the other platform.
All right.
And thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you there. Bye-bye.